We are taught that anticipation is the spice of connection, that staring at a screen waiting for those three dancing dots to turn into words is a sign of affection. We call it butterflies, caring, or being invested. But let's drop the romanticized facade. Staring at that screen, waiting for a reply that isn't coming or is intentionally delayed, isn't love. It is the slow, agonizing death of your own self-worth. You check your phone, the light hits your face in the dark, and you feel that familiar tug of anxiety. You convince yourself they are just busy. You craft excuses in your head, playing the role of the understanding partner, the patient friend, the person who doesn't want to be needy. You are essentially begging for scraps of attention from someone who is treating their response time as a power move. This is the paradox of modern interaction. We prioritize the people who make us feel like we are waiting for a train that has already been decommissioned. We cling to the ghost of a conversation, terrified that if we stop waiting, we admit the connection is hollow. We aren't waiting for a reply, we are waiting for permission to stop caring. We have turned our internal clock into a stopwatch for someone else's convenience, forgetting that every second spent in this state of suspense is a second subtracted from your own autonomy. The truth is, nobody is ever too busy to send a text. We live in an era where the phone is an extension of the human hand. If someone wanted to talk to you, they would. If they wanted to address your presence, they would acknowledge your existence. When the reply doesn't come, it is not a technical glitch or a sudden crisis. It is a choice. It is a clear, unfiltered signal that you are not the priority. Yet, we insist on living in the gap between the sent and the read. We analyze the tone of the eventual, curt response, dissecting emojis as if they are ancient hieroglyphics that hold the key to our future. It's pathetic, really. We allow our mood for the entire day to be dictated by a notification ping. If it buzzes, we are elated. If it stays silent, we sink into a quiet, simmering resentment. This is not about the other person. It is about the surrender of our control. We have outsourced our emotional stability to the thumbs of someone else. Think about the sheer amount of mental bandwidth you waste on this digital limbo. You draft replies you never send. You check their profile to see if they are active elsewhere, creating a narrative that justifies their silence. You have become an investigator in a case where the verdict has already been delivered, and you are just too afraid to read the file. This behavior is a form of self-sabotage that we've rebranded as loyalty. We think that if we show enough patience, they will eventually see our value. But silence is rarely a precursor to a revelation of love. It is almost always a precursor to indifference. When you stop waiting, something shifts. The first time you put your phone face down and decide not to look, you feel a panic, a phantom limb sensation. But then, the realization hits. Nothing bad happened. The world did not end. Your life continued, and the only thing that changed was your level of obsession. The turning point comes when you stop trying to bridge the gap. You realize that the energy you expend chasing a reply is better spent on literally anything else. You stop being the person who is always there, always ready, always holding the door open for someone who doesn't even have you on their route. You move from a state of anxious attachment to a state of chilling clarity. You realize that when you stop waiting, you aren't losing them, you are gaining yourself. The power dynamic shifts instantly. You no longer need the validation of a blue bubble to feel complete. You become unreachable, not out of malice, but out of necessity. You are no longer waiting for their signal because you have stopped broadcasting your need for it. You stop looking for depth in shallow waters. You eventually hit a point where you see a notification and you don't even feel the urge to jump. You look at it, acknowledge it, and if it's trivial, you let it sit. Not as a game, not as a calculated maneuver, but because you genuinely have other things to focus on. You find a strange, liberating power in being the one who doesn't care if a conversation dies. It's the ultimate form of detachment. You are no longer tethered to the whims of an algorithm or the fickleness of a human ego. This is not about being cold. It is about being finished with the performance. The performance of waiting. The performance of pretending that a delayed response is anything other than a lack of interest. You see the truth clearly now. You were never really waiting for a message. You were waiting for someone else to validate your worth so you wouldn't have to do the heavy lifting yourself. And once you realize that, the waiting becomes a relic of a weaker version of you. You stop counting the hours since they were last seen. You stop deciphering the ambiguity. You finally understand that the most powerful thing you can do is to stop giving them the power to make you wait. You are now the master of your own attention, and there is no price for that. You have reclaimed the silence for yourself. The phone is no longer a cage, it is just a tool. You look at the screen, and for the first time, you don't feel a thrum of adrenaline. You feel nothing. And that nothingness is the most peaceful thing you have ever known. The cycle of the waiting game is broken because you no longer care to play. You have accepted that people are who they are, and their silence is a sentence, not a question. You move forward unbothered, untethered, and entirely focused on your own lane. The realization is heavy, but it is necessary. They didn't ignore you. You just let them be the center of a world that was always yours to rule. You were waiting for them to show you their heart. They were waiting for you to get the hint.